So we've been making work as a company called Kill the Beast for several years, making comedy theatre. And during that time, we'd been very well supported by the Lowry in Salford as we were kind of developing, and by Arts Council. And in about 2017, we decided there was nothing else for it but to try and write a full-scale musical.
Yeah.
We were just desperate to try and write something with a bit more a broad audience appeal that could play to bigger houses and might have a kind of a bigger, potentially commercial future for it. So once we found Operation Mincemeat,
Yes.
in 2017, and we started writing it, then actually basically the first thing we did was sign up for a new work scratch night at the Lowry. They were kind enough to give us a slot, because then we had to write some stuff.
We had 6 months. We were like, okay, what are we going to do? And we presented 2 songs, one of which remains completely untouched and in the show, and that song is Dear Bill. One of the first things we wrote, and we have not changed a single word of it. And the other one was God, That's Brilliant, which has changed but does still remain in the show. So after that scratch, we knew we had something because the audience seemed to like what we were doing. So then we applied for a run at the new Diorama.
Yeah,
and
in London.
once we secured that, which was a 5-week run, we started applying for Arts Council funding. And after numerous attempts, we weren't always successful the first few times, we did finally get about 14,000.
14,000, yeah, grants for the arts. The entire first run was kind of self-funded. We were also supported by the Lowry. The Lowry kind of bailed us out at the last minute with an amazing extra bit of funding. And we got funding from a few other sources, and the new Diorama were also incredibly supportive in putting those applications together and kind of helping us rally the funding that we needed. And it was because it was a 5-week run, and we'd never done a run more than maybe 4 days before, other than a national tour. So it was a substantial project. It was a substantial amount to raise. But yeah, it meant that we got a 5-week run, which for new work and for emerging artists is so important, because it means that we had the time to get reviews in, we had time for word of mouth to start, and I think that our now producers came on the very last show of that 5-week run. So it just goes to show that giving new work those kind of longer opportunities really does make a difference in terms of bedding in and creating a future for that work.
So after the 5-week run at the new Diorama,
which is 2019,
we were touting around for producers who may want to take an interest in the work, and a fair few people were interested. They came, saw the show, and then they were like, cool, let me know what the next show is. And we were like, oh, this took so much time and effort to do this
well
one.
done, love it. Tell us what's next.
Exactly. But one producer, i.e. Avalon, they came along and said, this is great, but it's not ready for the big leagues. You're going to need to develop it over a number of years in front of an audience to build, 1, the show, and 2, the word of mouth of the show, which I would advise any producers out there is a really good technique, in that you can't, yes, the product might be ready, but also you need the wind behind its sails if you're going to take it to a really large venue, like in the West End. So you can't just pick something up and drop it there. So we knew we had this development contract, and so that's when we started about doing different versions and iterations of the show. So our next run was at the Southwark Playhouse in the little space, and then we moved to their large space. Then COVID hit.
COVID hit, and then we moved to the large space.
And we'd spent some time during COVID down, not being able to perform, but we were, as writers, were able to kind of rehash some of the bits and work out some of the kinks. Then we did the Southwark Large again, and then Riverside
in
Hammersmith.
So all of that, I think there was about 4 or 5 development runs before we even got to the West End. And I think, like David said, as well as the kind of figuring out the creative side of it, what was really essential was that over those runs, our fans discovered the show. We started seeing the same people coming back. We started seeing people who were bringing new people. Our self-proclaimed Mincefluencers, our fan base, who are just the best fans in the world, who we owe so much to.
And they started at the Riverside.
Yeah.
That was when a group of people first began to call themselves Mincefluencers, and first openly said, our job is now to invite new people to the show and to kind of self-advertise this show for you, because we want more people to see it. And so we entered the West End with that wind behind our sails.
And it's really daunting. It's daunting going, we started in an 80-seater venue, and suddenly you're at the West End and we've got 400 seats. And and financially as well as just artistically, that is incredibly daunting. So I think, thank God we kind of had those iterative steps on the way there. Otherwise, it just would never have worked if we tried to go straight into the West End.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're here at the Lowry today, celebrating the launch of the world tour of Operation Mincemeat, which is an insane sentence to say. What are we doing? How has this happened? And we're very lucky that the Arts Council has again supported the world tour and with the incentivized touring program, which again, it just kind of goes to show that the Arts Council providing financial support as a launch pad for new work, I think is actually really incredible. I think it's really rare for new shows like ours to have done this work of scaling up like this.
Really, really rare. I mean, it's like counting this.
Yeah, particularly with musicals. Musicals are so expensive to put on and they are so difficult to do because there's so many moving parts. So, producers need the help. Even commercial producers, they need this kind of help. And I think it's what the Arts Council should be doing is kind of finding creatives like us who are making new work on a wing and a prayer and kind of giving them a little leg up and continuing to support as we scale up is really essential.
Yeah, it's about giving the money up front so that the producers and the investors, particularly for touring, it's a really difficult market. It's very precarious and you need some help at the beginning to make sure your books balance and that things don't basically fall apart at the early stages. And the Arts Council being able to fund a level of that, which then they get paid back over time, so the money isn't going to waste, it goes straight back into the pot it came from. It means that more unusual work that isn't top-down produced, isn't a Disney show, isn't on these huge big shows that are able to suck up these costs, that work can get out of London, get out of the main cities and go on tour, and so more people can see more unusual, new work from grassroots creatives. And it really is, the story of the show really is a testament to what grassroots funding can do if you give young artists, early artists, we're not quite so young anymore, but when we were, give them the funding so they have time to try out their ideas, to work out their style, to get things wrong, and that's all part of being an artist, so that over time you can then grow and finally make something that has a much broader appeal and can survive something like a world tour.
Yeah, and I think Operation Mincemeat is unusual for playing stages of the scale that we are playing on this tour, and that's what's really amazing. It is still at its heart a small show that has been expanded onto a big scale. It's a 5-person cast. It's multi-rolling 87 characters. Yeah. We've lost track.
The actors play the principals and the ensemble at the same time.
It's physical theatre. It's got a devised style to it, but it also packs all of the punch of a big budget, sparkly, brilliant musical. And I think that it is hopefully inspiring for other creatives regionally to see work being developed like this and being brought to their stages.
To have the world tour start at the Lowry is it's like a real full circle moment. Like this building, which is subsidised, was the first place to ever give us and the people we work with money to make a show. No one on earth had ever thought that was a good idea. The Lowry, for some reason, did and continue to support us. We've been developed with artists for a long time, and that scheme is funded by the Arts Council. So it was public funded money that was given to us by this building for a number of years to develop
and also,
our craft.
And support as well. It's rehearsal space. It's training in marketing. It's training in how to do your funding applications. But at the bottom line, people have asked us in Q&As before, or venues have asked, what's the thing that venues should be doing for artists? Ultimately, money is just so crucial, and it doesn't have to be a lot, but it like we say, it's a launch pad. It's just helping artists kind of sink their teeth into what they actually want to make. And the fact that we started that here, we threw shows together with
we were kids,
a box of hats and a prayer. And so to come back and be playing in the Lyric, the biggest venue at the Lowry, it's like a little homecoming.
Yeah, and to have the first songs ever sung in the studio from the show are sung in the studio, and now the fully realised production is setting off on its world tour to be in in the big Lowry space. We've never had our work on in that theatre, and it just feels so. I mean, I can't really. I actually genuinely can't believe
surreal,
that this has happened. But it is thanks to ongoing funding and support from the Lowry and the Arts Council in developing us as artists. And we are deeply thankful to everyone who gave us a yes.
Okay, advice for people doing applications.
Who are at the beginning of the process.
At the beginning of the process.
Firstly, don't be knocked back by a no. Sometimes a no just means maybe you haven't clarified your thoughts well enough. And there is a yes waiting for you another time, because that's what happened with this show.
I think don't be afraid to be ambitious.
Yeah.
You know, I think we'd been making work for long enough that we were able to be really clear about what we wanted this show to do for us, artistically but also professionally.
Yeah.
You know, we wanted to make something that expanded the audiences that we could play to, and therefore the theatres that we could get into. And I think being really, really clear about that as the ambition for the show, and not being afraid, kind of going, oh, well, we can't say that we're going to hopefully tour nationally and internationally. You know, if that's what you think that you can do with a piece, that's what you need to say that you think you can do, you know?
And in doing that, as artists, when you're thinking about making work for a wider audience, don't think of it as watering down your art. Think of it as a challenge of how do you keep your style and your artistic voice and transform that in a way that a wider audience likes. Don't think of it as like, how do we make this have more broad appeal? Think, what clever ways can we use to bring that audience into our version of events? And this, as Zoe has said, this show is an unusually small show to be seen on a large scale. And at certain points, we had the option to add a cast of 20, and actually we would have lost the heart of what this show is, and ultimately the heart of the artists that were making it and our vision. And so hold on to that, because there'll be more voices the bigger you get. But ultimately, it's down to you guys to stick true to your original idea.
Yeah, I think also it's believing in the work that you're making and knowing why you're making it. And if you're kind of putting a show together as a box ticking exercise because you think that's what other people want to hear, that's ultimately not going to do you justice artistically or financially, you know. Whereas if you're actually making work that you really believe in and you think audiences are going to want to see, that's your bottom line. That's all that really matters.
That's great. Thanks, guys. That was really insightful, actually.